About 20 years ago, in the very first incarnation of my blog, I wrote a story called "There Is No Magic Pill," and I wrote that in response to people that I was already starting to coach. I've been coaching almost my whole career, as well as running my elite athlete sort of high performance side of things through my life as well. And I wrote this blog post on "There Is No Magic Pill" because there is no magic pill. Even pharmaceuticals aren't a magic pill because they're cheating, and in the end they don't do anything for high performance sports or for sports at all, because you're basically getting there by cheating. So there is no magic pill, and what I mean by that, and what I meant by that, is that there are 100 ways that, let's say, I could write a training program for myself or for you to get you from now to the TC 10K. And even for myself right now, I could write it all out, and I could go on the internet and look up a 13-week training program, because I think we're at about 13 weeks out now, 12-week training program. I could ask 5 different coaches, and I would get 5 different answers. But what makes the difference is it's not in the training program to get me to the TC 10K. The difference is in the execution of what I do. The difference is in the execution of how I train, how I show up to training, how I communicate with the people that I'm training with and my leader or my coach, and my mindset leading into all my training. And that is the magic pill, and that is the part that there is no computer program for. It's because each one of you is an individual. So it's the same with me when I was racing at the highest level. We were all super talented. We were all given this sort of gift of biomechanics and VO2 and whatever body we're given to, plus our environment and our background and our flat shoes to make us efficient runners. We were all given that. And then really what it came down to was how we executed our lives and our training. And so what it also meant that we paid attention to what was going on, and I know Jonathan wanted me to touch a little bit on the idea of training and periodization and recovery, and how you can do this for yourself when you're out training, whether you're doing this throughout your training program that you're all a part of right now up into the TC 10K, and then beyond that, whether you're training with a group or not, or whether you jump into a different clinic and train with a different clinic. There's a whole lot of little skills that you can know and you can embrace as runners that will help you no matter what training program you're on and no matter what training group you're in. And number 1 is know yourself. How many people have ever been out for a run and trying to keep up with somebody who's a little bit faster than them? I did it 1,000 times. I ruined my World Student Games experience on the 10,000 meters by running with the Canadian champion, the existing Canadian champion, 3 days before my event. And this woman was my idol. She was the fastest runner in Canada. I was still up and coming. I had made it to the World Student Games. I was excited. I was there. I was in the big leagues. And I went running with these women who were 5 years more developed than me. And when you're 19, 5 years is a huge amount of time of development, especially in running and distance running. And I left my race in this 10-mile run. What I was doing running 10 miles 3 days before 10,000 meters, I don't know, but I certainly wasn't listening to my coach. And and my coach wasn't there, but it was a mistake that I made. I mean, I shouldn't have done it. But I was so caught, although I do remember that run, right? So maybe in the long run, I ran with Alison Wiley and I kept up with her for 10 miles. So maybe it's okay at the end, 40 years later. But no, really, honestly, I do remember many, many times running with people. I ran in a lot of high performance environments. And I would run with people, and I would just know there was this internal level and sense of effort, which was just this much too high or too much for that day. And as a young athlete, I wasn't able to say, I have to back off. I need to do my own training today. As a young athlete, it was like, or an inexperienced athlete, you don't even have to be young. Being inexperienced was that, no, I got to keep up with this person. and you stop being mindful, and you're not really competing, but you're caught up in the moment of having to stay with this person. And when about probably in that same period of time, maybe 2 or 3 years later, I ended up here in Victoria for the very first time in my life in 1990, and I was running at UVic. I had basically made this leap across the country because I wanted to be a high performance runner, and this is where everybody was training, either Vancouver or Victoria at the time. Everybody was here. Anybody who was anybody in the distance world was training here. And I used to show up to practice just like depleted. And I could never get through a practice on the track. And these were hard practices. These were like 6 times 800, then 400s, and then 200s. And I would get halfway through the workout and I would just be gassed. And I just thought I just wasn't fit enough. I thought I'm just too young. I'm not there yet. I'm trying to keep up with these people. And then my coach said, well, Lucy, what are you doing in between runs? And it turns out in between my track days, I was going out and I was running the whole 10 miles of the waterfront from my place up in Fairfield all the way down to like the Inner Harbor back because it was so beautiful. I had just moved to Victoria. It was awesome. You know, or I would go to Elkham Beaver Lake and I would run with people around this amazing 10-kilometer gravel path, and I would just kill it at 6-minute miles. And when he discovered that that's what I was doing, that's when I learned that my easy days had to be easy. It was a drag. I like running fast. I like running fast all the time. But really, when I learned, it took a few months actually, because those kind of changes don't happen overnight. But when I learned to leave my easy days completely easy to recover in between those speed days and those hard days, that's when I saw the gains. Basically once I had figured that out, my 3,000 time, because that's what we were running at the time, went from 9:30 to 9:06 in one season. And it was coaching, and it was development, it was being in this high performance environment, but it was also learning for myself that I had to go and do my easy run days on my own from then on. And that I have to do them at my own pace. And so you either have to find somebody who's totally willing to go super slow with you on your easy days for running, or you have to do them on your own. And in the end, I actually ended up doing a lot of my easy base days on my own. And this was another thing about learning what your style of of being a runner and an athlete is. And there's no hard fast rule like the magic pill of people having to run. Oh, I have to run 100-mile weeks, or I have to run 150-kilometer weeks to run a marathon, or I have to run 80-kilometer weeks to run a 5K. Those are just numbers. And I learned very early on that I could not run more than 80 kilometers a week. I know this probably seems like high mileage for some of you. I don't know. Some people even now run way more mileage than I ever ran, in my whole career. But I had to figure that out for myself as well. So there was even though everybody else was running way over that, running 100, 150 kilometers a week, I had to figure out what it was that was going to work for me and my body. And it's kind of like you guys. It's very similar. I was training within an environment of people and trying to figure out where I was going to get the most out of it. Just like when you're training in a group environment, you have to figure out where can I train in this group environment that I'm getting the most out of the camaraderie and getting most out of the leadership and getting most out of having a group of people to train with, and then where am I having to make sure that I'm solid with myself. As far as taking the time off. And time off is another thing we're going to talk about. Taking days off is no crime, just so you know. I honestly believe that recovery days, taking days off of running completely. How many people here take days off in the week completely? So good. I'm preaching to the converted here. Good for you. Recovery is training. That's basically all I can say about recovery. Recovery is training. Recovery is not untraining or being lazy or not running. Recovery is actually a necessary part of your training program. And I think you all know, seeing as there's so many hands up, I would say that you all know this quite intuitively, that you need to have those days off so that your body can adapt to the hard work that you're doing on your actual days running. It not only is running a high impact activity, it is, but running is also like a high mental activity, especially if you're running in a group. Because most of us have a goal, which is the TC10K, and whether it's a completion goal, like this is something I really want to complete, I've never done a 10K before, or if you have a time goal, like I'd like to run faster this year than next year, that little voice of I want to go a little faster this year than next year, it's always in the back of your mind. It's always in the back of your mind. You bring it to every training session. You bring this, am I going to go a little faster this year? What am I doing right now to go a little faster this year than next year? And so taking the time, taking breaks from those kind of sessions in between the training is also super important as well, to give yourself like a mental come down from always being turned on. In the big picture of your yearly training, it's good to take a period of time where you don't have any goals whatsoever. You don't have any race goals. Most people do this around Christmas because it just makes sense. It's nice not to have goals at Christmas, unless you're going to Honolulu to run that marathon or whatever it is. So I think it's around, maybe it's before Christmas. But anyway, and so it's a really good idea to plan at least one part of your year, or maybe the beginning of the summer and Christmas, where you just kind of take all your running goals off the table altogether. You can even take running off the table altogether, and it just allows you to just stop thinking and focusing about it altogether. And so that when you want to start up again and you want to set your goals again, it just kind of feels fresh and it feels like fun again. Because what happens over the long term is if you never take a break, then that's when burnout happens, because you're just always thinking and always obsessing about what you can be doing better, instead of just taking a bit of a step back from it every now and then and taking a break from thinking so hard. I want to talk about form a little bit as well before we leave, because Marilyn was going to talk about form, I believe. And so I'm just going to talk about a little bit about form. It's going to be from sort of the way I often teach form to people. Has anybody taken one of Marilyn's clinics ever? A few people have. Okay, yeah, because I know she's reached a lot of the runners in town through her methods, which are awesome. And but both Marilyn and I have the same basic philosophy, which is if you can teach people to think about form and think about how their body is moving through space, they are less likely to get injured and more likely to have a consistent running schedule that builds with momentum and creates success and long-term success that you feel good about. So the one big thing I always teach about form is to kind of take your feet out of the equation for a little bit. And because you think about our feet all the time, because that's what's landing on the ground, and your feet are super important. But instead of thinking about your feet right away, you think about your body and your center of gravity, because that's really the most important part of your body that's moving across space. Is where the main mass of your body is. For women, it's a little lower than men, but it's your center of gravity. And think about having your center of gravity as being very tall and very solid. And I don't mean solid as in you gotta like crunch your core when you're running, but it's solid in that it's you do your strength outside of running, right? Everybody does that. When you're not run training, you're doing plank. Basically plank is one of the best exercises for a runner to do, just basic plank, because it basically puts your body, even though you're horizontal, it puts your body in that position that you should be in when you're actually running. So it's that feeling of having just a nice solid torso or trunk area and having a very strong center of gravity that's going to be moving across the ground. I have one of my favorite vision of a runner was Gebre Selassie, the little Kenyan, little Ethiopian, and I have visions of him running, and I carry visions of great athletes in my brain when I run, because in my brain what I see this person basically floating across the ground in this kind of forward-leaning momentum, and their feet are just kind of like picking up. Their feet are doing nothing. It's really their body is moving across the ground, and it's all in their hip flexors. It's all in this little tiny muscle right here, picking up every single step and landing as they float across the ground. And Has anybody ever taken one of my clinics where I talk about balloons? Oh, you never had the balloon talk. So, on top of that, what I do to reduce fatigue and make running more fun is I take helium balloons and I put them in my hips, like right inside my pelvis. So I'm a very visual athlete. I always have been. I visualize all my races before I run with them, and I use a lot of visualization when I train because it keeps me on task. It's very process oriented for me, and sometimes you need a little trick out there. So I take helium balloons, I metaphorically blow them up, and I have them inside my pelvis, and that keeps my pelvis up, like almost like it's up and off the ground. And my pelvis is up, and then I have this tall posture on top of that with this it's not an erect torso, but it's just a strong torso. It's like I have power coming from my torso. Swimmers do the same thing. I mean, anybody here swim? No, you're runners. Oh, some of you do. So swimming is the same thing. It's not your arms. Your arm muscles are very small. I mean, your arms are propelling you through your water, but a lot of swimming is this unbelievable corkscrewing motion of your trunk and your torso. It is. When we look at swimmers, look at the top swimmers in the world. They're like, especially the men, they're actually even the women, they're just super strong. They're not little runners with narrow shoulders, right? So swimming is this huge motion where you are engaging your trunk first. In fact, almost all human movement is coming from here first. As long as, in golf, same thing. As long as you are solid here, everything else can move from there. So that's, for me, it's a very, like what Nick was saying, it's you try not to overemphasize any one area, but you have this overall vision for how your body is moving through space most effectively. And for it to move through space and across ground most effectively, to have a slightly forward-leaning, floating motion that is done completely relaxed, right? Done completely relaxed. One of my favorite quotes of all time was from Jackie Joyner-Kersee, and she said, I want to run fast and powerful, and I'm going to do it all relaxed. And really, there is this very relaxed quality to fast, powerful, dynamic motion. There is no tension in the face, and there's no tension in the neck, and there's no tension in your shoulders. The tension only is with every eccentric contraction of the muscle that happens to be being used right at that time. Every other muscle in the body is completely relaxed at that point. Okay, so if you do want to think about your feet, here's the best way to think about your feet. Your feet are the point of contact between your whole body and everything you weigh and the ground. Okay? So with every foot strike, no matter where you're landing on your foot, although it is ideal to be slightly more forward for sure, because if you're more forward on your foot, then you're already in this kind of, your center of gravity is ready to come over and land for the next step. So there is this kind of slightly forward lean to running. But every time your foot comes down, all your weight basically is being pulled by gravity down into the ground. So if you can minimize that all that weight landing on the ground with every single foot strike, then you're going to minimize fatigue, you're going to minimize chances of injury, and you're going to go faster longer, right? You're going to be more efficient longer. So to minimize that, you want to have quick feet. It's simple. You want your foot to land on the ground for as little amount of time possible with every stride. And they have this ultra cool treadmill over at Pisces. It's like a horse treadmill. It's like about 5 feet wide, and it's full of technology in it. It's not just your regular take treadmill at the at a fitness center. And on this treadmill, they can measure how long your foot lands on the ground for every single time. I think it's super cool. And that's how the sports scientists over at Pisces are helping, like our top 800 meter runners, our top 1500 meter runners, our triathletes, we're helping them become the most efficient runners possible, because if they can reduce the amount of force on the ground with every strike and have really quick heel lift, which is why you guys have to do the C drill, right? Y'all do C's. You have really quick heel lift. It's all a matter of how quick your foot can strike the ground. So instead of thinking about your feet so much, about where's my foot landing and what's it doing, and am I heel striking or forefoot striking, you can actually think quick feet. I had quick feet. And if you think about quick feet and picking up your feet very quickly with every stride, you probably will naturally start to fall into a very efficient pattern for yourself. And the other way to track your quick feet is to check your cadence. Has anybody checked cadence yet in their clinics? No? Okay, so checking cadence is basically how many times your foot strikes the ground every minute. You can either count both feet or count one foot. I just count one. So how many times your foot hits the ground in every minute? And obviously the quicker your cadence, the higher that number is going to be. The taller you are and the longer your limbs are, your cadence will slow down a bit, because a 6'2" man versus a 5-foot woman, let's say, or a 5'2" Kenyan male distance runner, the difference in leg length is going, the difference in limb length is actually going to create a slightly longer, slightly less long stride. But most of us who sit between 5'2", 5'4", and 6 feet, we all have almost the same, most efficient, like optimal stride cadence, which is around 196 per minute. That's for both feet. So what you can do, it's like really, really easy to count your cadence, is you can go for a run, and you go for a run and get yourself warmed up. Get yourself warmed up, so do your warm-up run, very easy, but with good posture. That's a little tip. Never be lazy on your warm-up runs, and never be lazy on your cool-down runs. So when you're warming up and cooling down, you're still thinking about quick feet and being relaxed and having a good body position and being strong in your trunk and relaxed in your head. And then after you've got yourself warmed up, run at a slightly quicker speed, but not fast. And then count 1 foot, 1 foot landing for 30 seconds. Just count it. And then it should be around 46, between 46 and 50, depends. Sometimes I'm up around 50. And then if you double it, then you have 100 for 1 foot, or you have 96 for 1 foot, or whatever you have. If you're under 40, your cadence might be a little bit slow. So it's just something to you can kind of tune into. It's just like how quick, how much is my turnover? And then the other easy one is how much noise you make when you run, because I call it ninja feet. And I get kids love this one. I get them to do it out on somewhere where we can actually hear feet landing, like on a tennis court or an asphalt basketball court. Is if you get people to run and you get people to experiment with running with ninja feet, running as quietly as possible. And really, to run as quietly as possible, you have to have very quick feet. You have to land very softly, and to land very softly, you have to have a quick turnover, and you have to be able to pull up your foot very fast before the next foot strike. So it's because we don't have the time right now to run you through standing up and doing posture drills and thinking about your body in space. I really like the visuals. I like the way of thinking about things as reminders. So thinking about quick feet, thinking about I like thinking about being a dancer. I mean, I think dancers are very graceful. So maybe I never was a dancer. I really wanted to be one. So I dance when I run instead. So being tall and having wonderful posture like a dancer. So dancing while you run, having quick feet, and having balloons in your hips, if you want to. If that's too weird for you, that's okay. Or as one woman said to me at a clinic, she goes, "Well, what if my balloons pop?" I'm like, okay. You have an endless supply of helium balloons. That's the way these things work, because it's magic. So anyway, so whatever little vision, whatever body cues work for you while you're running is sometimes better than trying to be robotic around changing your style. And I'll leave you with a really good visual. So when I got to Dal for the first time, I was already a pretty good high school runner, and I went to Dalhousie University as a runner. But I was under the impression that big, long strides were best, because that's graceful, like bounding down the track. So I had a very long, bouncy style at the time when I first got to Dalhousie, and my coach noticed it right away, and he's like, we can make you way more efficient if we got you to not so much shorten my stride, but to increase my cadence. Okay, so same cadence, same length of stride, but quicker cadence. I was going to go faster around the track. And one way he did that, instead of trying to get me to focus only on cadence, was he asked me to pretend I was running in a corridor where the ceiling of the corridor was only like this far above my head. So if I was going to try with these big, long, bounding strides, I would hit my head on the ceiling of the corridor every single time. And so that's, for me, that visual worked really well, and I started envisioning myself running in a very, very low ceiling corridor. So I didn't get so much bounce with every stride, which meant I had to take quicker strides so that I could cross the ground without so much. And we did work on my cadence, and this is back in the late 80s. So you know what he did? Because this is before MP3 and all this kind of stuff. He went to the music department at Dalhousie University, and he got somebody on percussion to basically drum out 100 beats per minute, and he recorded it on a CD. Or it might have been on a tape, I don't know. He got somebody to tap out 100 beats per minute, and I wore headphones, and I took it to the indoor track at Dalhousie. We had this like indoor track around the field house, and I just practiced what that felt like. And basically those were two things that I had to work with early on in my running career as well. So yeah.
Do you have any idea how accurate the cadence measurement is on Garmin's?
I don't actually. I will. The only way, what I would do is I would just use my watch as well. I would get somebody else to help me with that. I would say, get them to go and stop, so that you don't have to look at your watch, and then just count 1 foot strike, and then compare it to the Garmin. Yeah, I will honestly tell you guys, the biggest secret about me is I'm super low tech. All I have is a watch. I don't use Strava, Garmin. I have no bike computers. I think it's because I spent 30 years being very plugged into quantitative data. And so maybe it's my gift to myself, or it just might be that I'm kind of like a low tech person. But anyway, so I tend to I have my watch, even for heart rate, I do the old pulse count. I mean, I don't really need to take my heart rate anymore. But anyway, so I'm not against technology whatsoever, but that's what I do a lot. And even because when I was using my heart rate monitor, sometimes I would still do just to do like a little how I run. I know exactly where I am all the time now. But people like Lorraine Moeller and I mean, we grew up in the low-tech era too, right? We grew up running. We grew up in the beginning, well, she was even 10 years older than me, so everything was effort-based when I was learning how to train. And so I became very intuitively aware. Well, actually I wasn't, because I've already told you about my mistakes I made at the World Student Games. It took me a long time, but it was all those lessons I learned about personal awareness and effort. And nowadays when I coach, especially with an age group bunch, I just go with 1 to 4 as a rate of perceived effort. 1 being you're jogging along, warming up, talking to your friend. 4 being you're sprinting to the finish line. 2 and 3 are all you ever really use in clinics when you're going a little bit faster and trying to hit some slightly faster paces. So that means the rate of perceived effort is definitely another conversation. But being completely honest and true with your level of effort and knowing when you're going too hard or too easy, that like discomfort is not pain. You're allowed to be uncomfortable when you run. Pain is different. Pain is you're going to get injured. And allowing yourself to move into discomfort and being okay with it, like those are really, really important things. And just as a little aside for all you people who are either approaching 50 or over 50 like me, if I didn't listen to my body now, like that's the only way I train now. The only way I train now is I listen to my body. Like I'll go for a run. If I feel great, I'll go run hard that day. If I don't feel great, I don't go run hard that day. It's just, there's no point, because my energy and my body is just changed over the course of time. And there are lots of days where I just don't even run anymore because I just don't really need to anyway. But anyway, so and granting myself that gift of not having to go hammer out 10 miles because I'm supposed to. I want to answer your question though, because you had your hand up a while ago.
Do you recommend worrying about cadence during that long, slow run? Because I think for me, I would be starting to run faster to keep up with the cadence, and then if you're supposed to be relaxed and being able to talk and
That's
such
right.
on a Saturday morning,
Yeah.
how do you?
Well, the whole thing about cadence is that it doesn't have to change. You can have, I mean, it does change a little bit. When I'm running really, really slowly, I find my cadence will naturally slow down, actually not speed up.
Yeah.
And then as I run faster, like if I were to race the 5K or the 10K, I get a very high cadence. But I try to not let it change too much because it's not really, the cadence is just the cadence is really how quick your muscles are used to firing. So and that's pretty static. Your muscles are used to firing, let's say, like 96 times per minute. So what changes though is how long you're going, right? What changes is how long your stride is. So you and I could run 10K at the exact same cadence. But if your stride was longer than me, you'd finish 10 minutes ahead of me. Right? So I would keep on, in fact, it's almost during the long runs, the easy endurance runs, those are the runs for me where I really ingrain good habits. Because I have all kinds of mental space to ingrain good habits when I'm not super focused on trying to run fast. So when I'm out by myself, running my 1 hour run, I'm always thinking about how strong am I running right now? Like am I relaxed? Am I running easily? Do I feel, are my balloons sound nice and blown up? And so even now, after 40 years of running, every run is like a practice at having good habits. And so for sure, halfway through a long run, I would check my cadence just to make sure it's still like kind of at a good level and I'm not getting lazy. Most people actually get lazy in their long runs. That's what happens, is they get lazy and the cadence slows down and their body slumps. And so that's why your long runs those are the runs to really continually be practicing how you want to feel and look on those hard days or the race days. Does that answer your question? Yeah. Any other questions? I know you guys have been here for
I
a
have
while.
one question. You touched on it a little bit about when you get older
Yeah.
and training. I find now I'm in my 60s. It's
Are you?
harder.
Yes. I am.
Well into them, but it's harder.
It's harder.
It's harder.
Yeah.
And no matter how hard I work,
Yeah.
it's harder.
So when you say it's harder, do you mean everything feels harder or it feels harder to run the same pace?
Harder to run the same pace.
Yes, well that's just life. Look on for it. You asked for that. And it's only because I'm 50 that I can say that. But for sure, I mean, I did lay down all my PRs in my late 30s. So I just know that I'll never run that fast again. That's why it doesn't matter anymore because I have nothing left to prove. And going after these Canadian 50 plus records, they're just fun because they're there. And Maryland's going to break them all next year anyway. But yes, for sure. I have just found that I have allowed myself. I just let my body, and I let myself do what it can do because I never want to stop loving running. So if I start fighting, feeling slow, then running's going to be no fun for me. I even ran into this, in my mid-30s whenever I started my blog and called it Run for Joy. The Run for Joy came at a very intense part of my career where every single workout was I was trying to make a Canadian standard. I was trying to go to the Olympics. I was trying to make a national team to go to Worlds. Every workout was this obsessive race for a time. And I thought, but I really still loved training. And I'm I gotta balance this somehow. I've got to keep on tapping into that joy of what I liked as a kid about running. I just loved running. I loved the feeling of my body moving through space. I like trying hard. I like striding. But I had to temper that with, so you have to find a way to continue to run for joy even as you're slowing down, right? I mean, you're fast for your age.
And on that note, I'll